or component. Korea today is one of the largest suppliers to the value chain of China, and that's why they are growing at such a fast speed, because they have integrated themselves into the supply chain for China. There is a pari passu increase in the rate of growth of imports and exports in China. Why? Because the imported inputs and imported raw materials are a part of the Chinese production process. The final product is assembled, the quality is assured, the logistics management is done by the Chinese, but the fabrication process is not completely integrated within Chinese factories. And this is where, if India, Pakistan, and South Asia have to compete with China, they say, oh, China is 2.3 trillion of exports, and India is still struggling with 300 and 400 billion only. There are many reasons for that. One of the major reasons is that we are still following a model of manufacturing which is completely outdated and is not really germane to the future requirements. The second part of this equation of the supply chain is that if you take a shirt which costs you almost $100 in the US retail market, and if you do a diagnosis of the various services and the fabrication, you will find that out of that $100, the fabrication process itself will take only 20 to 25%. All others are embedded services in that production of that shirt to the retail shop. 50 to 60% are the wholesalers, the jobbers, and the retail trade. That is on the forward linkage to this fabrication. The design, the financing, the insurance, the transportation takes another 25 to 20%. Therefore, this dissection shows that services have to be part of the whole process. You cannot have this kind of separation which we have always been doing, or services sector, manufacturing sector, agriculture sector. The embedded services today constitute a much larger share of the final product price as compared to the fabrication itself on the factory floor. So this is a lesson which we have to imbibe in our own mindset. Now, I have just distributed a paper which was published by Foreign Policy magazine in Washington. It's called Don't Disturb the Consensus. And it says that for the first time in Pakistan, there is a broad political consensus among all the major political parties, whether it is PMLN, or it is PPP, or PTI, or ANP, or AMQM. They have all committed in writing in their manifestos that they want to normalize Pakistan's trade relations with India. And this is a very positive step. The media onslaught which I used to see, even in the Urdu jingoistic newspapers, has toned down a great deal. But unfortunately, this is not being reciprocated in this big country where any incident takes place and the media outpourings, and I was here last time when the LOC firing took place, and I listened to Times Now, and I listened to many other channels, not only Times Now, but other channels. And I think instead of trying to calm and soothe the nerves, they were actually exciting them and inciting them against Pakistan. And despite Mr. Manmohan Singh's very sincere commitment that he wants to get relations normalized, and Mr. Vajpayee himself traveled to India in order to meet Mr. Nawaz Sharif in 1998 with the intention to normalize. Now, when you are in opposition, you try to play games and put the government on defense so that the government cannot take any actions. I have been arguing that Pakistan should not take even one single moment in phasing out this negative list, because as Mr. Rehan showed, it doesn't have much impact either to Pakistan or India. We can have other measures like the sensitive list in the SAFTA in order to protect those subsectors or those commodities which are going to be damaged. So there are countervailing measures, there are safeguards, there are SAFTAs, there are tools available. But the impact just of the announcement effect that we have now given the non-discriminatory market access, which is a much better word than I can tell you about the MFN, because the Urdu translation of MFN says, Sabse Pasandida Qaum. Now you cannot sell after such a historical legacy that all of a sudden, India has become your Sabse Pasandida Mulk or Qaum. So that language itself, the semantics, make a lot of difference as far as the mindset are concerned. So I'm very glad that the two countries are now talking about the non-discriminatory market access. And that will not do much damage either to Pakistan or to India, but it will give a very powerful signal, not only to the business community in both the countries, but to the international community. And I have talked to many international investors who tell me that the moment there are signs of a stable and predictable economic relations, this is the market with the youth bulge, with the younger workers at lower cost, which will provide us the workforce for the future. And they would like to locate themselves, not only for producing for Pakistan, but for the whole South Asia, or not for India only, but for the South Asia. So the externalities which will accrue by normalizing the India-Pakistan relations are just not even captured by some of these models which you have done. Because this is not going to happen overnight, I can assure you. People will wait and see. And when they are assured that there has been a change as far as the paradigm itself is concerned, there is a stable and a steady growth in the two countries' trade relations, then you can see the FDI will start flowing in. The demographics are changing. Japan is today shrinking its population by 0.7% per annum. And this is now going to be followed by Europe and the United States. But the United States is very smart. They get immigration both at the top end, where they attract the best brains from all over the world, and they also get at the lower end, when they get all the menial labor who are not interested, the Americans are not interested in working in the construction industry or in the farms. They get the Mexicans and the Central Americans to fill in that gap. And that is why America is still going to remain one of the potential force. But if you look at the other countries, then India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the three most populous countries, and Sub-Saharan Africa are the only reservoirs of young labor force. We don't need two young workers to support one aged person, which will be happening in the Western world. So this is an opportunity that if you normalize these relations, the collateral benefits which will accrue to you are going to be much greater than what you can see because of these demographic changes, the consumption patterns, the emerging middle class. You already have anywhere between 300 to 350 million middle class, which is going to grow. And if you combine the whole South Asia, this will be 500 million people in the middle class range. This is a very attractive center for consumption for producers of the goods and services. So you have good demographics, you have to equip them with the skills and the education, you have highly vibrant middle class, and you have an underutilized potential. India and Pakistan, in my view, and I've been a civil servant, so please forgive those of you who are from the civil service, our biggest impediments is the bureaucratic hassle and the bureaucratic attitude. We take pride in stopping people from doing things rather than helping them and promoting them to do something. And this is one of the major difficulties which is keeping India from reaching its potential. I cannot imagine that so many smart people who are starting their companies successfully in Silicon Valley, and when they come to India and I meet them, they get so frustrated that they cannot do business here. So you are actually doing a great disservice from unleashing the potential which you already have. You should not be exporting $300 to $400 billion of exports, ladies and gentlemen. You should be doing much larger volumes than what you're doing. So bureaucratic hassles, number one impediment in India and Pakistan. These I called behind the borders reforms. Get out of this still lingering restrictiveness. You've heard the evidence. Overall restrictive index for agriculture in India is 69.5%. Total is about 15%, one of the highest. This unilateral trade liberalization will actually help your exports. As a chief economist for East Asia and Pacific, who worked on China, I can tell you this, that they reduced their tariff rates in order to allow the flow of imported inputs, raw materials, and components at an average 5% tariff rate. And if you can see a chart which shows the lower is the tariff and non-tariff barriers, the higher is the exports. This is the China story. So India has to get out of this mindset that by protecting agriculture, you will make competitive agriculture. You will make your agriculture much more efficient by removing these protections. And this is something which you have to think about to make your products competitive. The third is on the logistics, supply chain, and infrastructure. I traveled from Vaga to Chandigarh. A beautiful road up to Amritsar. Then there are bridges which have not been built, or the roads which have been abandoned. How long this has happened? 4 years. Why is